Here comes a great story for you. The ding-dong daddy of the San Francisco cable cars. Now, here's how it all happened. I lived in San Francisco many years ago. We're talking 50 years ago. And one of the big annual events there is the cable car bell ringing contest, which I went to. And I'm going to play you a little bell ringing in the background here. Okay, now that you've heard that bell ringing, the guy sitting next to me says, "Hey, you know the whole story about this bell ringing contest?" I said, "Well, what's the whole story?" He says, "Well, I'm going to tell you the story of the ding-dong daddy of line number D." I said, "What's that all about?" He said, "Just listen to me." Well, I bought him a beer after the Ding Dong contest, and he told me this story. It's a wonderful story. A few years earlier, before I had arrived in San Francisco, the winner of the Ding Dong Bell ringing contest was a very handsome guy. And somehow he got in big trouble because somebody found out that he had two wives, one at each end of the cable car line, where, of course, he was the driver and bell ringer on a cable car. And apparently, he was so attractive to women because of his good looks and his ding-dong ringing skills that he managed to snare two absolutely gorgeous women and have kids with both of them. And they lived at opposite ends of his line. Well, this was a big story in the San Francisco newspapers. And the then district attorney wanted to put him in jail. Well, and I guess the district attorney thought he could get some good publicity out of that story. Well, he indicted him for bigamy, that's marrying two people, which is illegal in the States and certainly in California. And as the trial progressed, and the newspapers covered it, and he became sort of a local hero, guess what happened? Well, I'm going to make a long story short. 14 other wives were discovered. This guy had 14 wives, all of whom he picked up and met on his cable car career. And one by one, they weren't all discovered at the same time, but one by one, they came into the courtroom. And the story gets more unbelievable because the wives pleaded with the prosecutor, "Let this guy off. He's a wonderful fellow. He's a jolly old beer drinking, fun-seeking chap, and we love him. And we don't care if he has," each one says, 13 other wives. It's fine. Let him go. Well, at this point, the leading lights, the big shots of San Francisco, the leading real estate financier and bankers and everybody chip in. I think it was about a $2,000 bond. Of course, today, in today's money, that might be $200,000. But in those days, the big shots and leading people in San Francisco chipped in to get him a bail bond. That means he could be free during the trial as long as the money was posted. Okay, so that's what happened. Now, the trial went on, and it got more and more publicity all over the United States. And somebody wrote a hit song. And we're going to play a little bit of that.
Because I'm a ding-dong daddy from Dumas, and you ought to see me do my stuff. Why, I'm a clean-cut fella from Horner's Corner. Oh, you ought to see me strut. I'm a caper-cutting cutie, got a gal called Katie. She's a little heavy lady, and I call her baby. I'm a ding-dong daddy from Dumas, and you ought to see me do my stuff. Yes, a ding-dong daddy from the Dumas.
Well, anyway, it was the Ding Dong Daddy song, and it was very popular. And it was teamed with a song by Judy Garland called Clang, Clang, Clang Went the Trolley. And then Louis Armstrong also had a song, and you'll get about it. The bottom line was, poor Mr. Ding Dong was eventually sentenced for bigamy to 10 years in the prison. But the public sympathy was so much for him that he was released, not immediately, but after a short term, and he emerged from prison. And according to the legend, he asked the trial judge if he could have permission to marry again. This would be the 15th time. And the judge said, sure, but you got to clear with all your other wives and get annulments or divorces. Well, over the next few months, he did, financed by all these socially prominent people. And his next wedding was a big event. But the funny thing is, the judge publicly lectured the potential new wife, who, according to legend, was another beauty queen. And he said, don't marry this guy. He's already had 14 wives, and he'll probably have 14 more. You'll have a very bad time if you marry this guy. But she said, we're in love, and they got married. Well, then the Ding Dong Daddy kind of dropped out of sight, but he's always remained a legend in San Francisco. Now, for part two, I decided I would research the Ding Dong Daddy and find out who he really was and what really happened to him and what the wives really thought of him. And so if you like this story and want to know what happened to the real Ding Dong Daddy, tune in to part two, which I'm going to make in about 1 minute, but we'll post it tomorrow. See you then. Bye.